All right, we are on air. This is another episode of Help Yourself. I'm Tara Gentili, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about who I am joined by in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you a little bit more about Help Yourself. Help Yourself is a weekly live show about digital small business, the new economy, and growing a company that you love. And that's what all of us here are really, really passionate about. Today's topic is going to be all about how you find the right message, the right words, the right stories to instantly connect with customers and sell more of what you've got going on. Because the truth of the matter is, you can promote your business until the cows come home or until you're blue in the face. But if you're not talking with the right language, if you're not using words that actually resonate with people, if you're not giving them what they want or what they're expecting to hear from you, what really tugs at their problems, their goals, their desires, it's all that promotion is wasted time. And I don't know about you, but I don't have any time to waste. I've been on phone calls back to back to back to back to back today. So any marketing I'm doing today needs to be on point message-wise. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, today I am joined, as I often am, by Co-Commercial's marketing director and the founder of Be the Forward Thinking PR agency, Bridget Lyons. Bridget, how you doing?
I am awesome. Hello, hello.
Hello. And I am also joined today by the founder of ARC Entertainment Media, which helps creative entrepreneurs make good money doing what they love and enjoy their life in the process. She believes that the best way to be truly successful in life and business is to be yourself, warts, sparkles, and all, so you can dream your dreams without selling your soul. It's Lisa Robbin Young. Lisa, hello.
Hey there. So glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is going to be, I think, a very fun conversation. There's also, I think, going to be some hard truths that we let out today, but also just some really helpful stuff as well. So just a couple more announcements before we dive into today's topic. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, first of all, hello. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and give us a like or a love. We love seeing those after the broadcast ends. But I do want to also let you know that we are broadcasting live today from Crowdcast. And so if you'd like to join in on the conversation and chat along with other participants, ask questions, offer your opinion and offer your perspective on the things that we're talking today, we'd love to have you. All you have to do is head over to crowdcast.io/co-commercial. You can find today's event there and get right back on into the conversation without missing a beat. So again, that's crowdcast.io/co-commercial. And then finally, if you've missed any Help Yourself episode, and we've got a nice little catalog of back episodes at this point, you can find them live on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Google Play. You can find us on Radio Public. And wherever you listen to podcasts, we'd love for you to leave a review, give us a rating, and of course, subscribe. All of those actions take very, very little time, and they really help us reach as many digital small business owners as possible. So let's go ahead and dive into this topic of how you go about finding the right messages to use in your business so that you're instantly connecting with customers who want to buy what it is that you have to offer. And I often like to start with sort of the reverse of our goal, which is, figuring out how to diagnose a problem in the first place. So I'd love to hear from you guys, both Lisa and Bridget. How do you know when you have the wrong message? Lisa, do you want to kick us off today?
I think the obvious first choice is there's an external and then there's an internal. The internal is it's not feeling aligned. You're borrowing somebody else's messaging because you're seeing it in the marketplace and, they're running all kinds of Facebook ads, so it must be working for them. I'm going to use that message. And it's not in alignment. It doesn't feel good for you, but you're doing it because you think it's going to get results. So there's that internal piece, but then there's also the external of nobody's responding. You get crickets and tumbleweeds and no comments, no shares, no likes. There's just I post and let your voice fall off. That's it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people automatically want to blame the crickets problem, like on the Facebook algorithm or on, Twitter's just so noisy. But a lot of times it might be actually what you're saying that's causing the problem, right?
Or what you're not saying, because you've censored yourself and you're not letting the stuff that's really churning in you go out into the world because you're like, well, I don't know how that, somebody might not, well, I want to get the positive comments, but I don't want to get the vitriol. So I'm just going to, no.
Yeah. Bridget, what do you think? How do you know when you have the wrong message?
Yeah, I think Lisa's exactly right. It's an alignment question. And I think sometimes you can tell or diagnose that because you feel awkward saying it, right? And I think it's just a really simple way. Often I think online we're so often writing our messages out and we're not actually speaking them out loud. And so when I say it, I mean literally using those words in conversation. And I think that the best message lab is actually in conversation one-on-one with another person. And so if you actually say, this is what I do, this is my business is about to another person, and you're stumbling over the words, then you can tell that you're not quite on the right track. And also, you can also tell by how they react. Like if you get like but not an engagement back, it might mean that they're not really understanding. Often people write messages that sound good in theory, but are really hard for somebody else to understand. And that's where you get the like they want to feel like, oh, I'm really smart, I'm with you, but really that means I don't get it. So that's another clue.
I think that's such a good point. And it could even be like, that's right. I love that. But it doesn't inspire action, right? It can get people really worked up, but it doesn't get them to sign up for your list. It doesn't get them to change their behavior. It doesn't get them to take the time to learn a new skill. And that's like not helpful for your business.
And I think you make a good point there. Wrong is relative to the result you want to get. Mm-hmm. So if you want engagement, you could be saying something that's super inspiring and really awesome and doesn't incite them to engage, and it's wrong. It can be amazing content, but because it's not doing what you want it to do, it's the wrong message at the wrong time. It may be a great message, but it's just misplaced.
Yeah, I have clients where we work on that all the time because it's like your message is so context specific. And so it's like, what is that action? And sometimes people say, well, I know this kind of content goes viral whenever I post it. I'm like, okay, but is that actually selling the services that you have or getting people to buy or getting them to sign up for your email? And if the answer is no, who cares if it's going viral? You know what? I've had posts go viral that are nothing to do with what my message is about. And sometimes, I'm like, oh, is this really what I want to be known for? Is this really what I want to have out there? And it's like, this isn't helping at all.
Yeah, someday we'll have to do an episode just on all of Bridget's posts that have gone viral that have not helped her business.
Yeah, I've got those too. I think we all have those. I have a video on YouTube that has like over 500,000 views on it. Yeah, it's a Spider-Man mashup. It has nothing really to do with anything. I mean, I talk about heroism in your business, but it's completely like, all these people who watch it because it's Spider-Man, and it's like, there's nothing for selling my stuff, nothing.
All right, awesome. So I want to take a little pause here and come back to you, Bridget. We're talking about messaging, but I think that's a word that gets thrown around a lot without a whole ton of meaning. But this is what you do. And so I'm really curious, what's your definition of messaging? What are we really talking about here today? And how does it apply to the kinds of results or the kind of action that people here listening are taking?
Yeah, I mean, foundationally, all messaging really is the way in which you describe who you are, what your business is, what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, right? It is the language that you use to talk about your business. But the easiest way, I think, to understand what messaging strategy is to think about it in relation to visual branding, because I think a lot of businesses spend a lot of time thinking about their branding, what your logo is, what colors is, and what your brand looks like. And what you're doing with your branding is you're trying to leave an impression in the eyes of your audience. And that's exactly what your message is doing, but on the verbal level. So you really want to have this consistent and coherent messaging platform, which is the way that you talk about your business, the language that you use, that leaves an impression on your audience. It's really memorable, and that they can come back to, and that you can, to be perfectly honest. And so you want to think about it as the verbal kind of complement to the visual branding that you have for your business.
Boom. That is a brilliant definition, brilliant way of describing that. So perfect. All right. Well, then let's take that to the next logical step, which is, where do we actually get started? So Lisa, I know you work with a lot of kind of high-powered clients, people who are doing those things. They are wanting to be as memorable as possible. They're wanting to take the amount of memorableness maybe that they already have and take it up to the next level. Where do you start with a client when and you need to work on massaging or optimizing or even just finding that initial messaging for them?
Sure. A lot of the clients that I work with come to me with what they think is their message already, because it's I'm going to be really nice and mean about this. It's the turd they've been polishing for a while and they don't want to let go of it, right? They don't want to let go of it. They're like, but I've been working on this and this is, and it's like, but when I talk to you, and for me, context is huge. I want to know the backstory because I work with creatives a lot. So they are a part of what they're bringing into the world. It's, they don't put it on the shelf at 5 p.m. They are a piece of this. So their context informs what they're bringing into the world. And if that's the case, then I need to know that context. The world needs to know that context because it's part of what gives your thing meaning. Your great work doesn't have as much meaning without you and your story imbued in it. So if that's the case, we need to get to know who you really are, because that's a core piece of the message. And so many people focus on what I want this thing to be about in the world. And as a creative, you've got to get back to who you are. Simon Sinek talked about start with why, and I think that's brilliant, but I also think it's misguided because so many people focus on, I'm doing this for you because I believe in blah, blah, blah. But do you really believe in that? Because what you're doing in the world isn't in alignment with what you say you're about. And so instead of looking at why, I go back to who. Who are you really? What really matters to you? What really inspires you? Even if it doesn't make sense in the business that you're trying to build, that piece of you is that undercurrent that runs through everything you're working on. Whether you're a chaotic or linear or a fusion, like that thread runs through all of your work. And so we need to know that. We need to experience that. And if you've been hiding it or censoring it or putting it away somewhere and going, well, that doesn't apply because it doesn't, it totally applies. And so I go back to, what are your core values and beliefs for you as a human being when you're showing up in the world? Because that's going to drive whatever message your product or service or art, your great work, whatever that is, it's going to be born right there. So let's get clear on that first. And then we can unpack, how does this serve what you believe and what you stand for in the world?
Awesome. Bridget, where would you go from there?
Yeah, well, one of the things in terms of thinking of context, like there's a little bit of a different way that I approach this. And I think these go in tandem totally, which is like, I always like to understand too, and I have a PR media background. So this is probably like where I always start is like, I want to know what is that greater conversation that your messaging is coming into context with. And so I always feel like it can be really hard to figure out, what do you focus on? What do you push forward? And what is it that you let come second? And so with a lot of the people that I work with, what we do is a really in-depth audit where we look and say, what are people saying on message boards? What are they saying on Reddit, if that's relevant to you? What are they saying out there in the media? And what is it that you have to put forward that is going to push this conversation in a new direction? Because I think that can be really important for resonance when you can go out there and say, here's the thing that's missing in this conversation. And that can be the way to really cut through the noise with your message. And so I like to look at that, like what is that whole context that your audience is taking in when they come to your work. I always like to say to my clients, imagine that somebody is just about to stumble across you in a Google search, or their friend has just suggested one of their articles in their Facebook feed. What are all the preconceived notions that the audience is already bringing in your work, and where can you actually challenge them or take them to the next step from that? And that's kind of like where I like to enter into the context.
Yeah. What I love about what both of you are saying is it echoes a book that I'm reading right now that I'm kind of obsessed with. It's a large part of the basis of the workshop that we're going to do on Wednesday. I'm going to tell everybody about that toward the end of the show. But it's called The Power Paradox by Dr. Keltner. I think that you say his name. But he talks about how enthusiasm is actually one of the big ways that we earn power and influence over any social network. A market counts as a social network in the sphere or community. And so I think what both of you are outlining, Lisa with personal values and Story, Bridget with, how do you move that conversation forward? How do you fill in the gap? It is a huge opportunity to leverage your own enthusiasm. And when you can be really enthusiastic about the message you're putting out there, that's actually a huge way to earn power power, to earn visibility, to earn attention, to take the lead in any market. And it's actually something we forget about, I think, when we talk about messaging, because people are like, they're wanting to wordsmith things to death, and they come up with these things that sound good but don't mean anything. I forget who said that earlier. And so you can't repeat your messaging, you can't tell the story, if you can't share about your product or your service with enthusiasm, with the words that you use and the way that you've chosen to communicate about it, you're failing. And I think that's one way the message is wrong, but it's also another kind of great starting point for messaging too. So you've got to be able to be incredibly enthusiastic about how you talk about your business, your company, and the thing that you offer.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's jump into the next question here, because this goes to actually one of the questions that came in ahead of time, which is, and Bridget, let's come back to you to start here. What's your process for refining a message once you think you're on the right path? So you and Lisa have both given us kind of these jumping off points that we can use to start creating messages that resonate more deeply, resonate instantly with customers. Mm-hmm. Where do you go from there? What are the next steps after you've started testing something?
Gosh, well, I think that there's a little bit of a creative tension involved in the process. And I'm glad you used the word refining, because that's really what it is. And I talked about like the greatest laboratory being between two people. And like, I always love to tell my clients, like, you cannot think or noodle your way into a perfect message. Like, you have to put it out there. You have to test it. You have to have conversations. You can put out Facebook ads with competing messages and see what comes back, but you need to put your message out there into the public, because ultimately what it is, it's all about perception and how other people perceive and interact and take action on your message. And so the most important step is to, come to an idea about what you think your message should be, what you think you should be leading with, and then actually just put it out there and see how people react and go from there. But where the creative tension comes in is that at the end of the day too, and I think this is a lot of like what Lisa's talking about, is like, you have to know your values and what it is you want to be known for. So on the other hand, we don't want to let ourselves be totally market driven and forget what it is that you stand for, what your business is about. And so that's where the creative tension is that you always want to bring it back to, okay, I've gotten some input. Is this going? Is it not going? Is it falling flat? Should I tweak it? But you don't want to let the market take you to the place where now you're no longer about what you want to be about. And so there is this sort of human laboratory of figuring out what's the best way to communicate this message to get people to take the action I want to take, while I'm still putting out there what it is ultimately that I want my business to be about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, the other piece to that is your messaging is not always going to be 100% the same from platform to platform. Mm-hmm. And some platforms are going to resonate more strongly for you than others. When I first got online, I had a Facebook account and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this thing. Twitter was my jam. Like, my first full year on Twitter, I could point to $30,000 that I made that year on Twitter, and like Facebook, nothing. Now those numbers have changed a bit because I've learned how to target a specific voice message, same message, different wording, because different people are in different places. Shorter, succinct, more punchy in some places, longer, more emotional in other places, and same message, right? So we also have to be mindful of what's the platform you're using, and make sure that what you're speaking to that platform is for the people who are on that platform, because otherwise it's still going to be, as we go back to the beginning, the wrong message.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a question here that kind of ties into this from Stacy, and she says, I've noticed some interesting choices and changing in the co-commercial messaging. For example, changing things from business association to business community. The Facebook campaign, we kind of put together around grow together, the line save time, share notes, get real. She says, would you be willing to talk about your thought or creative process behind this messaging? I always find it super helpful when you let us into your thinking, and thought others might find it interesting as well as a case study. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about my thought process because I love my thought process. That said, we've been really experimenting a lot with messaging at Co-Commercial, and I think Bridget can weigh in on this as well. And Lisa is a Co-Commercial member too, so it'd be almost interesting to hear from Lisa's perspective on this too. But I think it's funny with co-commercial, I'll be completely honest. I don't think we've nailed the messaging yet. I think that we've done a lot of things really, really right. I think, save time, share notes, get real has a lot of power to it. I think there's probably another step beyond that. It's funny that you mentioned business association to business community, because I literally just changed it back to business association last night. And you know what? These things happen. And I think probably even more beyond my thought process behind our messaging, it may be helpful just to realize that we're experimenting. We're trying things to see what resonates. When I was, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, I think a little bit later, but I was at a retreat for Mighty Networks community hosts just this weekend in Palo Alto. And one of the things that Gina Bianchini talked about was how community doesn't seem to be resonating with people. It's not that people don't want community. It's not that people don't value community a lot, but the word has lost a lot of meaning over the years. And I think that's something to think about messaging as well, is that just because you land on the perfect message this year does not mean it's going to be the perfect message next year. Markets change. People pay attention to different things. They're susceptible to different kinds of connections than they from one year to another. And so while business community might have made a splash 5 years ago, I actually am thinking it's the wrong word now, and that's what Gina was saying as well. And so we've actually gotten a lot of positive feedback around the idea of creating a business association for digital small business owners. And so I'm starting to kind of double down again on that positioning, but then refining underneath of that what we say that means. And so for us, that means moving in the direction of talking about how we help you make better, more informed decisions by connecting you to the web's largest knowledge base of information and people and resources on building a digital small business today. I feel really good about that. The truth is, I don't know how it's going to play. It may be the perfect thing, or I might need to change it again. But what Bridget was talking about, just trying things, putting things out there and seeing what the human response is to it, that's the only way you can know whether the messaging works or not. I can talk to you all day long about how I go about finding those specific words, and I'm happy to do that. But at the end of the day, it's nothing without experimentation. Bridget, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I can talk about the experimentation we're doing from a tactical level, because we are, I think, in this environment where people overlook how easy and how many tools there are for us to experiment. And so what we'll do over at Co-Commercial is we really pay attention to the feedback that people give us. We've done some surveys. We pay attention to what goes on in the threads and try to reflect back what our members say that they love about the community in our marketing. And so Tara will make real time, I think I was trying to say Tara and sales page.
Well, I also spelled your name wrong in a video for Creative Live this week. I made them redo it so I could spell it correctly. So there you go. We're even now.
Tara sales page. We're going to make a little thing there. But in the real time, Tara makes a lot of changes and adjustments to the landing page for it. And then also with our Facebook advertising, usually when we put an ad out, we have at least 3 copy concepts and 3 visual concepts. And that's kind of for a smaller campaign. For larger campaigns, we might have more. So we're testing, what does this tweak do and what does that tweak do? And we can reflect people's language back. We can reflect what we're learning, and then pepper in Tara's preferences too, and the kind of the intelligence and the insights that she has. And so we're always making these tweaks and adjusting in real time to what we're finding is working. And we're in this amazing environment where these kinds of tools are actually available to small digital businesses when they didn't used to be at this kind of scale at all. So it's a special time for us.
It is a special time for us. All right. So I kind of hinted at some trends and some changes in the market when it comes to messaging. And I think this is a really important topic right now, because I think the kinds of messages that are resonating right now are rapidly changing. There's a lot about our digital marketing environment, actually, that's rapidly changing. I mentioned I was in Palo Alto this weekend for that Mighty Networks retreat. And one of the things that Gina Bianchini, the founder of Mighty Networks, said was that, quote, what worked 6 months ago isn't working anymore. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. And if you're not feeling it yet, it's probably because you've got a lot of infrastructure behind you that's allowed you to really weather this change a little bit more slowly. But I think for a lot of people, it was almost like a Band-Aid getting ripped off. And I think, this 6-8 month time frame corresponds to a lot of kind of cultural, political changes that have gone on in this country, but also around the world as well. So I'd like to kind of just start off this segment by asking you guys, what are the kinds of changes that you're seeing, if not in terms of tactical marketing, this kind of strategic messaging that we're talking about today? Are you seeing a shift in what resonates in actually pretty small time frame? Lisa, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think when you make a big statement like what was working isn't working, in my experience, that tends to be more tactic focused. The tactics we've been using to reach people aren't working the way they used to. The strategies we used to employ aren't doing that the same way. But in my work with people, time and again, the thing that I find that works consistently are two things: honesty and polarization. Like when you can be honest about what's going on in the world, in your marketplace, and you can be that truth teller, whether it's painful or beautiful, if you can be the truth teller, that always works. And it leads to the second thing, which is polarization. And I'm seeing that as a trend more right now. People are much more willing to be more polarizing in their copy, in their conversations online. I believe it was Jerry Maguire, they've lost their ability to bullshit. They're like done with that, right? They're just like, I'm just going to say it and y'all can just fight over it and I can block you or whatever. But that's when we get to that raw polarizing place in our conversations, that's when the real comes out. And that's why I say work, sparkles, and all. Sometimes it's going to be pretty, sometimes it's going to be ugly, but it's real. And because we have this whitewashed Photoshop facade of our great lives on Instagram and social all over the place, those moments of real get people going, I want that. That's what I want. That's that piece right there. Give more of that. And so when I'm working with clients, it's like, how do we get to the real without like opening up a vein and just squirting it all over everybody, right? We want to have that real so that they can hear the truth and understand that, yes, there's this wonderful veneer.
Uh-oh. Bridget, did you lose Lisa? Or is it just me?
Yeah.
Okay, we lost her. Okay. Anyhow, let's keep going. Marty will edit this out of the podcast. It'll be awesome.
Oh, here she is.
Where'd I go?
We lost you for a second there. So if you said anything brilliant in the last 20 seconds and you can remember to repeat it, that would be rad.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying like that need to be, when you're in that space of honesty, then that's what triggers.
We lost her again. The internet does not want this to be shared with you guys. But Bridget, I know that this is something that you really specialize in,
and you have to be courageous
and something that you think a lot about too. So Bridget, can you weigh in on this idea, or maybe you're seeing something different happening in the market?
Well, I could not agree with what Lisa just said any more than I do right now. So I just want to punctuate that and add just one thing is that sometimes I think that, and I wonder if this is true for Lisa, like what my clients really need from me and hire me for is that like permission to go there. Because what I think really is changing is that before I think people could get away online a little bit with being kind of broad and being generalist and trying to have more of a mass appeal within their area. And we've always talked about niching down. You need to niche down your business. You need to niche down your message. And I actually think we're at this moment, and I've seen it with clients who are trying to make their messaging more broad, is before we might have been able to get away with it. And now just absolutely not. It is not flying anywhere. And so really focusing in on who is your audience, what is that truth that you can speak? What is that kind of polarizing moment? It doesn't always have to be polarizing, but what can you add that's different? I think is more important than ever. And bringing that forward through your brand, whether it's your identity, your messaging, what have you, we just cannot get away with being generous online anymore. And so I think that that's something that's really important to keep in mind, that if you have a strong opinion or a strong point of view, embrace it, push it forward, don't back away from it, and try to make it for general consumption.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with both of you as well in this moment. So I think this is also, I want to point out, this is not something that is particular to digital small businesses, to solo entrepreneurs, to micro businesses, however you think of yourself. This is not a small business thing. This is an every business thing today. I did an interview last week with Alicia Johnson on Profit Power Pursuit, and she's a brand strategist who works with luxury brands, like the top luxury brands like Jaguar, with her agency Johnson and Wolverton. And she was talking about how she has seen a shift just within the last 6 months around these kind of luxury brands actually shifting their message to be values-driven, mission-driven, purpose-driven, ethics-driven, where they're actually trying to appeal to a customer who chooses the brands that they buy into based on what it says about them personally. Now, that's not anything new, but I think what's new today is how much we want others to see that as well, and how much that's actually driven by these kind of really polarizing topics. And so that I think was really, really interesting. I also think there's a huge opportunity here to, while creating polarization, being raw, being vulnerable, being honest, not feeding into the kind of rage machine that is out there in social media as well. You can take a stand, you can be polarizing, you can invite people into the movement that you're creating without contributing to that rage machine. So I just want everyone to realize that what the three of us are saying is not start yelling about your political persuasion as your social media strategy, but instead deciding in your market, in your community, in your industry, what is it that you're going to take a stand for? What does that say about your personal values? What does that say about the story that you want to tell about the business that you're building and the movement that you're creating and the community that you're pulling together? And using that to your advantage, really to, like I said, pull people together so that it's not just about, hey, look at me, but hey, look at us. And I think that is going to be a market and messaging trend that we see continue here for quite a while. Now, we also had some questions about this as well, or some questions that kind of feed into this idea. The first one, which got a lot of upvotes, was from Lisa Murray, and she says, can you talk about messaging that's not problem focused? She says, I really prefer to look at possibilities rather than problems, but it seems like people don't look beyond their problems. What's the way forward here? Lisa, how would you tackle that?
This is my favorite, because so many of the clients that I work with are creative artists, and they're like, but I don't solve a problem or serve a pain. And I'm like, you don't have to. You can serve a delight. And if you look at the bigger lens of how does this make someone's life better, or how does this make someone's life even better, that points back to a pain or a problem that you can mention if you need to. But if you keep them forward directed and you reference why forward direction is important, you don't have to worry about solving a problem. Lady Gaga does not go around going, how do I solve their pain? She creates music that speaks to a pain that her audience resonates with, but she keeps her eye on the prize of what are we moving forward to? And I think when we as creatives can look at that and go, okay, how do I make their life even better, and speak to it from that perspective, then we don't have to worry about pain points anymore.
Yeah. Bridget?
I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, life is not all pain, right? Like, a lot of our life is about avoiding pain, mitigating pain, but life is also about joy. And you absolutely can use your marketing to have people find joy, find purpose. Like, people also focus on the things that they want, not just the things they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And they tend to assign greater degrees of value to it as well. So when you help people self-actualize, when you help motivate them, when you give them a sense of belonging, when you help delight them, they actually assign a great deal of value to that. And they're willing to spend a lot of money on that. Now that might be relative to your market, but to Lisa's point about Lady Gaga, like how many people are willing to put down a serious chunk of change just to go watch her perform for an hour and a half? That is extraordinary, right? In a mass market, with a completely unnecessary purchase, that is really incredible. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. The thing I always say about goal-focused or desire-focused messaging is to realize that the not achieving your goal, not achieving your desire, the absence of having that thing that you want, that's a problem, right? So if you struggle to make the connection between, people like me who teach marketing and messaging where we're really problem focused and what you want to do, remember that the absence of joy, the absence of delight, the absence of reaching your goal, that's a big problem. And people want to solve that. And so they can come to you for that. And that's all you need to, that's how you need to get your head around that particular question. I know there was another one. Angel's question also pertained to this. Where did it go? Oh, this is a fun one. Angel says, as the human attention span gets shorter, she says, currently I believe it's at 8 seconds and Gen Z's is predicted to be 4. What platform strategies do you think will be most effective for small business marketers? Now, I'd like to steer this a little bit away from platforms, although if you guys want to go there, I'm game for that too. But really thinking about, are we designing messaging for those 8-second attention spans? Is it our role to figure out how to make that work? Or is it our role to kind of rise above that? And I guess that's probably a leading question because you can now tell how I feel about it, but I'm curious how you guys feel about it.
I'm currently putting together and promoting a live event that we're doing in Nashville. And I put out the sales page to a group of mastermind friends. And I'm like, give me your feedback. And one of them was like, it's too long. I only skim and your 5-minute video is too long. I got through like a minute of it. And I'm like, okay, clearly you're not my audience because you're not even picking up on the enthusiasm. I think it was Dan Kennedy who said, your sales letter needs to be as long as it needs to be and not any longer. You need to be able to convey the salient points, show them your enthusiasm, give them what they need. But if we're constantly driving toward the goldfish attention span, we're doing it wrong because I have an 11-year-old who has a focus issue, but you put Minecraft in front of him and he's good for 2 or 3 hours. So it's not about the message versus attention span. It's about connecting in the way that means something to them. And I think there are times when that 8-second thing is important if you're trying to, get new eyeballs for awareness. But when it comes to really standing in the value of the message that you have to bring to the world and the great work that you're trying to share and sell and that generate revenue, you need to speak the message that's long enough to the audience that it's most resonant to and just turn off the volume on all those other people because they're probably never going to buy from you anyway.
Yeah. Kiki says, yes, amen. Wynn says, yes. Amy says, thank you. So what you're saying, I think is definitely resonating. I'm on the same page as you. Bridget, what do you have to add there?
Yeah. Well, Tara, I think so much about your growth paths?
Growth styles.
Landing page? Growth styles landing page. So Tara has this amazing landing page, which literally lays out, it is so long. If you print it off, it would be like a novel. Yeah. And it basically lays out her entire system around something called the growth styles. And it has had huge resonance within the audience, so much so that when people come to me to a consulting session, not within Tara's orbit or within Tara's company, but within my own, they bring it up to me, in my consulting sessions. They're like, this is my style. Let's talk about this. And I'm like, I have to go to the website and go to this page and read it and be like, crap, I should probably know this. Right. And people love it and it's resonated with them, but it is a very long page and it has an opt-in. It's not just a landing page that has, you know, your opt-in above the fold, but it has all of the information, and people resonate to it so much. And I think that the analogy about Minecraft of like, people pay attention to the things that they're interested in. And so as the human attention span gets shorter, like, I'm not going to lie, like, yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge that we need to solve for. But the solution is not necessarily to cut back on what we're putting out there or to talk really fast so that we can get it all into 4 seconds. But it's really to do more work towards grabbing the attention and the time we have. And that all goes back to having messaging that relates back to what people most want. And so really focusing on the core strategy, what you're trying to achieve, is always important and has been more important than ever. And then as to platform, I mean, I know we didn't want to talk about tactics, but I mean, the question there is, the platform that's relevant to your business is the platform that you'll use and that your audience is on. Like, that's it. And there's lots of demographic information about who's on what platforms. And so that won't change. Like, maybe Snapchat is the shorter platform, but if you're not reaching young adults, then who cares? You know, so it's like, it really depends on that convergence. And so it all goes back to me about your messaging strategy, who you're trying to reach, who your audience is, and what they're most interested in.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons that are actually, I can't say that we're putting effort towards building our following on Crowdcast, but really using Crowdcast as a social platform as much as it is just a tool in our business, because this is where it may not be where our audience is right now, but there's a style of content that they like. But more importantly than that, it's a place where I can deliver a message, where we as a team can deliver a message that gets people's attention and keeps them here. And so this has been a really, tactically has been a phenomenal direction that we've taken, and time that we're really glad that we've invested in, not just from a messaging perspective, but also from a tactical platform perspective as well. I'm looking at the time, and we need to wrap things up here in just a bit. But I want to let's get in one more question here before we wrap things up. And I think Kristen's question is a good one here. What if you don't know if your message is working or not because you're just starting out? So she says, what ways can we get our messaging on target as soon as possible? And assuming that we've already done the legwork of envisioning who our ideal customers would be and created profiles for them. Where do you guys get started with a brand new business owner? Not someone who's got years worth of, information and ideas about who their customer is, but someone who really is just starting off.
Well, for me, when I'm working with someone who's brand new, I still go back to like those core value messages and start sharing those in what you would consider your safe space, because you need to practice you got to practice up your voice. You've got to practice your presence. And so if you're not even sure what you're saying or if what you're saying is going to resonate, you've got to find that safe space, whether it's a small group or a mastermind or just your own Facebook page, and share out those, this is what I'm thinking about. Not I've made a commitment and I'm sticking a flag in the ground, but like, I'm toying with this idea, and ask for conversation around the thing you're trying to get out into the world, not the specific product, but the idea, the concept, the values, the core values and beliefs that are driving that. Because when you can make those connection conversations happen, they're paying attention to you, and that gives you a stronger platform to stand on when you start to talk about offers and products and services, because they've already started to like you. We all know, like, and trust. Those are the things you've got to build. And there's lots of different ways to do it. For me, when I'm working with clients, usually the best way is to just show more of you in those elements so that people have that chance to connect. And then we can go deeper in the conversation.
Gotcha. Bridget, anything to add there?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I have a client right now who is trying to build up her platform, and she wants to do Facebook Live events, actually. And I'm like, okay, well, just start. And she's like, well, what should my first episode be? I'm like, the one that's easiest to do first. Like, because the fact is that when you're just starting out, it's very low pressure in a way. You have the benefit, like no one's paying attention. Let that free you. Let that be something that frees you to actually put out content. and see where it goes and what people start resonating with. Another thing, a way, if you have the stomach for it, to get some really fast feedback is go to Meetup and find an event in your location and go meet people in person and talk to them, describe your business, talk about, say what it's about. I'm going to acknowledge, it can be really hard when you're not 100% confident if you don't know where it's going to work. But I also feel like there is this benefit of, if you just pick a meetup that looks okay and it's kind of weird and you don't want to go back, who cares? You've gotten some information. That's all you need. And so if you approach it as the goal of, I'm not going here to sell my service or sell my product right now, I'm just trying to do some market testing, I think it can free you to actually unhook yourself from what the actual experience feels like if it's something that feels raw and vulnerable.
I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on, it's got to be right. It's going to be perfect. No, it's not. It's not going to be. It's going to be awkward and awful and painful and icky. And you're going to do it anyway if this is something that matters to you. So just go be awkward. And it's the practice that gives you the confidence to stand here and go, this is my platform. This is what matters. This is what I stand for. Nobody comes out of the womb going, here I am. Da-da. It's a journey. We all have to go through that. Some of us are just a little farther along because we've been practicing for 20 years. And, if you're brand new, you got to crawl before you can walk. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to save Lena's comment here too for posterity. She says, when you're just starting out, forget about messaging because that tends to produce anxiety. Talk instead about what you feel and believe as it relates to your area of expertise. And that just echoes so many of the things that we've talked about here today. And so Lena, thank you for sharing that and for all of your wisdom, Lena, always. But this is where we're going to have to leave you for today. First thing I'm going to ask of people listening today is, did you like having three of us here today? Was this fun? I had boatloads of fun talking to Lisa and Bridget, or maybe you preferred to. Let us know. And then, Lisa, I want to give you an opportunity before we close out here to tell us where we find you online and how can we learn more about you?
Woo! So my online web space is lisarobinyoung.com. Robin's got 2 B's or you're going to miss it. And you can find me on social. I'm Lisa Robbin Young just about everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I'm around. Reach out, say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa has got lots of wisdom to share with you. So definitely go and check out more of her work. And then finally today, Help Yourself is brought to you most weeks, every week that we're here anyway, by Co-Commercial. And we have got some really exciting stuff coming up at Co-Commercial this week and in the near future here. Plus, we've got some brand new training coming out on Wednesday that is completely free and open to the public. You can join me and the whole Co-Commercial team for a free 90-minute workshop right here on Crowdcast called The Secret of Standing Out, Getting Noticed, and Taking the Lead. We're going to talk about the intersection of marketing and leadership and how finding your own sense of power and influence can really help propel your business to the front of any market or any community. So if you've been struggling with feeling invisible, if you've been struggling with getting that attention they need to get your message in front of the right people, this is the workshop for you. You can go to crowdcast.io/co-commercial, or if you're here with us live on Crowdcast, just find a Co-Commercial logo somewhere and click on it, and it'll take you to our main page. The event's right there, and you can sign up for that at any time. If you can't make it live, be sure to sign up anyway to get the recording. Again, it's crowdcast.io/co-commercial, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, and we're going to be talking about standing out, getting noticed, taking the lead, and stop the problem of being so darn invisible. Bridget, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of Help Yourself. We're going to be right back here next week, same time, same place, new guest host. But other than that, I will see you soon, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the week, and good luck on your messaging. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.